I can't deal with that. I need you to open your mouths and let's get this started. Black lives, they matter.
Black lives, they matter here.
Black lives, they matter.
Black lives, they matter here.
Black lives, they matter.
Black lives, they matter
Let's
here.
get that Black lives, they matter.
Black lives, they matter here.
It's better. You're gonna have to be live for this, y'all. You're gonna have to get hate. We're demonstrating against hate. So, some people will say that these are strange times we live in, but those of us who have been struggling from time know and always knew that this kind of thing, this kind of violent, radical uprising of white supremacy was possible. We always knew that this type of thing was possible. Because when we say that Black Lives Matter, what we are talking about is the end of white supremacy in this country and beyond. When we say that water is life, we are talking about the end of white supremacist colonialism and capitalism. When we say justice for immigrants and freedom for refugees, we're talking about the end of white supremacist borders. This white supremacy has been here from before the uprising of the radical right. And that uprising is nurtured by the white supremacist that has always been here. So let's not get that twisted. We need to acknowledge that because we need to know where we need to start. In these times of overt white supremacist organizing and action, the powers that be are focusing on black activists or black identity extremists, as termed by the FBI. I know, it's weird. And are continuing the blight of Islamophobic attacks that Trump has bolstered through policy and Trudeau has condoned with inaction and continuing to work alongside him. And make no mistake, when these two identities come together in one person, it makes for a much more dangerous walk through life. The origins of Islamophobia on this side of the world are white supremacist and anti-black. Whether it be the 19th century slave revolts in Brazil, where enslaved people who were of the Muslim faith and so had a common language and were able to organize together, or the counter-organizing against Malcolm X's followers. Islamophobia is white supremacist, and Islamophobia is anti-black. There is no more proof of the fact that we are living in a society that is white supremacist than the refusal to criminalize white supremacist groups in the way that black groups simply fighting for justice and those who simply wish to practice Islam have been criminalized. I go to the University of Toronto. Relax. I ain't even told my story yet. You're cheering. Don't cheer for that. I go to the University of Toronto. For years, as a very public racialized student activist, I, along with several other racialized women, were threatened, stalked, and sexually harassed by white men on campus. The administration knew about it and refused to do anything. It is this culture of tolerance for white supremacist violence and hate that allows white supremacist organizing to fester. And we mustn't let it. We must refuse to accept it, always, full stop. And in case it isn't clear, I'm not just talking about uprisings like Charlottesville or the rallies in Peterborough and Quebec City. I'm talking about the Justin Trudeau government talking out of one side of their mouths when it comes to refugees and treating black Haitians and Somalis seeking refuge in Canada entirely different than what he says he's going to do. I'm talking about the Justin Trudeau's government's maintenance of slavery through the migrant worker program, employing black and racialized immigrants from the Caribbean, Mexico, South and Central America on Canada's plantations with little to no protections. I'm talking about Justin Trudeau speaking platitudes to Indigenous people at the UN, but not taking the issue of Indigenous youth suicides, access to potable waters in Indigenous communities, and murdered and missing Indigenous women seriously. I'm talking about a school system that maintains myths about Canada through a laughable history program that completely erases Indigenous perspectives and the existence of black people in Canada. I'm talking about the Kathleen Wynne's government's refusal to do away with carding and to Again, extend platitudes through consultations about the police watchdog in this province, and to implement only 5 of the 130 recommendations coming out of that consultation. I'm talking about the John Tory government's refusal to remove police from schools in highly racialized areas. The only places where there are police in school. These are examples of a white supremacist system at work, and it's the maintenance of these reprehensible policies in which overtly violent white supremacist groups are nurtured. And while I'm out here fighting for Black liberation, I hope that there are some allies and accomplices out there who understand your role, and it's time to stomp this out where it's being formed. I have one final note, and I'm speaking directly to the media who are here. You folks have a particular role and responsibility when this stuff is going on. And the last time we came out here and rallied against Islamophobia and white supremacy, some of y'all were on some dumb shit. Even though 6 people were murdered by a white supremacist in Quebec City, and even though 19 people were injured, and even though for the first time in Canadian history, people organized across the country against Islamophobia and white supremacy, the largest uprising of its kind, some of y'all decided to engage in white supremacy and Islamophobia. Let me tell you something about being a Black woman doing this work. It's dangerous, it's hard, and nobody's coming to try to protect you. So when a couple of known white supremacist personalities from what most of the world wouldn't even call news media send to the mass media decontextualized clips of a Black Muslim woman on Twitter or here talking and telling her story and incessantly beg you to attack her and to capitulate at the expense of telling the story about what this moment truly is about, you're doing exactly the bidding of white supremacy. And you embarrass yourselves. And Blog, TO, and Vice, I am specifically talking about you. Don't embarrass yourselves this year. Have a little integrity and understand that you too are part of this mess of a problem and can have a huge impact on how white supremacist movements are created. I'm not asking you to be biased, although we all have biases. I'm asking you to tell the damn truth. And the truth is that white supremacy is ugly. And if white supremacists are asking you to do some dumb shit, maybe question why they're asking you to do that before you do it. I'm a little angry. So let's end with a chat.